Not sure what that screaming sound is. Hi, everyone on YouTube. Welcome. We're going to go live with Francis Lucille. We'll let everyone in the room, and I'm not sure what that sound is. What that screaming sound is. Hi, everyone on YouTube. Welcome. We're going to go live with Francis Lucille. We'll let. There we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Pure Presence book study. And as you know, we are following. We're using the Perfume of Silence. This series. It's our longest book study, and it's been a great. We've had a great time so far. We've just finished chapter 3. And we're on chapter 4, and we originally asked Francis if he would come in, if he would join us sometime along the book study, and now he's here. We have Francis Lucille with us. Thank you, Francis, for being with us today. We appreciate it very much. We have some questions for Francis on that have been sent in by email, and the way we're going to do this, we're going to take the emailed question first. We'll invite you to come on live and ask the question directly if you emailed it in and you're here. Otherwise, we'll read the question and we'll get the answer that way, and then we'll alternate that with people that have their hands up. So if you would like to get in the queue to ask Francis a question, please use the raise hand function to get in the queue, and we'll start off. Jenny, would you like to start off by just reading the first question, and then we'll or invite Jeanette, see if Jeanette Meyer is with us. Jeanette, are you here?
I'm not sure whether she's here. Shall I read her question anyway?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Jeanette has got 2 questions, so we'll start with the first one. And she's referring to your website, Francis. She says, which says, Francis is a spiritual teacher in the tradition of Advaita Vedanta. Francis's teachings are not neo-Advaitic. And her question is, what are the major differences between Advaita Vedanta and Neo-Advaita?
Well, there are many major differences, and there are also many forms of Neo-Advaita teaching. I'm not an expert on those, but the first main difference is that in the traditional form of Advaita, the experience of our true nature has been handed down from teacher to student over many, many generations. So there is this type of transmission of the flame of this experience, if you will. The second main difference is this, is that Neo-Advaita seems to stop almost where traditional Advaita begins. Neo-Advaita seems to stop at a glimpse of our true nature, whereas for traditional Advaita, the glimpse of our true nature, or a liberating glimpse, the liberation, if you will, moksha in Sanskrit, is only the beginning of a process towards wisdom, a stabilization process. And the teacher in this tradition is a fellow traveler. They travel together with the student on this path. In other words, up until a glimpse of our true nature, we are, so to speak, on the path to the path. And we enter the path with this first recognition. And then the path is a process of getting established in inner peace and happiness. The reason why these two differences between traditional Advaita and Neo-Advaita is not, there is a correlation between these two. The reason is that often those who teach Neo-Advaita at best have had a glimpse of their true nature. And since they were not in a tradition properly accompanied by a teacher, they feel, oh, that's it. I have understood what needed to be understood. And there is no way we can go further. I am that. I am already that. I am already awareness. Awareness is universal, and that's it. However, the next moment they get angry or they get frustrated or they get afraid because this experience has not penetrated into their bones and flesh, so to speak. So that's a second difference. And as I said, there is a correlation because they didn't know better. Now, of course, there are many Neo-Advaita teachings in which even this first glimpse has not happened. So then this teaching is merely a hearsay teaching, a little bit like most religious teaching. They have heard what Jesus said. Doesn't mean they have the experience of I am is the path, I am is the truth, I am is the life. So that's my answer to this question. And although this question is relevant, it is only distantly relevant to the matter at hand here, because it's more of a question like someone who is not interested really in the truth would ask, a journalist or a media person. What is important is what is important to you. Is what is important to you the difference between Neo-Advaita and Advaita? That's theoretical. It is not that which is important to you if you ask this question. So if you have a question, I would prefer for you to ask your question, the question which matters the most to you. If you are on your deathbed, would the question be, what's the difference between Neo-Advaita and traditional Advaita? Would that be your question?
Your mic is.
Yeah, so sorry, I unmuted myself. Her second question, I think, Francis, is more specifically relevant. She starts by quoting me. She said that I mentioned that the word awareness is a noun, and nouns are about objects. And she says, I said, awareness is the subject. Well, no, I think I would have said that which is aware is the subject, or I is the subject. And so her question is, so if someone says, be the awareness that is aware, is there a more succinct way of saying that so that the noun awareness is not used?
If someone says, what, be that?
Be the awareness that is aware. I'm not sure where she got that from. So I haven't personally heard that.
Yeah, okay. I can, if you will, elaborate on this question, because what is important is to have, first of all, the word is not the thing, right? We use a language which has been elaborated over centuries and millennia to describe mostly the phenomenal world. And this language is divided into nouns for objects like trees, chairs, mountains, and verbs for actions. And then we have adjectives to qualify these objects, these nouns, and we have adverbs to qualify these actions. So that's basically how the structure of the language. And it is very appropriate to describe phenomena. However, it is not appropriate to describe awareness, because awareness is not a phenomenon. So for instance, is awareness an object, something which is aware, or is awareness an action? Like awaring, I'm coining a verb. Well, it's both and neither. So, in the same way, is the word reality, is reality is a noun, right? Is the reality of the world is made out of objects. Is the reality of objects, the substance, is it itself an object? Not necessarily. It could be an experience, for instance. So awareness is both an action, a thing, an experience, all of that together, and none of that. When Jesus was asked, I'm going to quote the Thomas Gospel, when Jesus was asked by the disciple, if they asked, where are you coming from? Or you say, we are the children of the light. And meaning, of course, awareness, reality. And they say, and if they ask what the light is, what shall we say? And Jesus answers, it is a movement and a repose. It is a verb and it is a noun. I mean, it is described and it is neither. You see? So awareness, we use a noun, right? But it is awareness / awaring. And what my definition, going back to the beginning of my comment, of awareness, it is whatever it is, which is really hearing my words right now, because hearing cannot be put under the rug. As I speak, my words are being heard. So there is something real about it, unescapable. You cannot pretend there are no words. There is not something rather than nothing being heard and hearing it. So whatever it is, that is hearing these words, the reality, the underlying reality, is what I call awareness. In other words, awareness is the reality that perceives. Because obviously from our inner experience, we know that it is the same I amness that hears, that sees, that thinks, that feels, that understands, that loves, that beholds beauty, that is moved by emotions. So it is, all of that is the same reality, which is the centrality of our human experience, this part of our human experience that has been with us always, which is our true self, our true I am. So I am awareness is in fact a way to say twice the same thing.
That was a very helpful description of the it almost has a dualistic oneness and nothing.
Language is dualistic by essence, because you have a noun and you have the noun and you have the referent. You have the word chair and you have the object chair, either that you see, that you cut, that you touch, or that you have a picture of in your mind. But there is this dichotomy always, this duality between the world and the thing. And that's why it's not too much of a problem to use dualistic words, phenomenal words, to point at awareness, provided we are clear about the fact that the word awareness is not the thing. The word I, either, is not our reality, is not what we are. The word I appears in awareness, which is what we are, appears to awareness in awareness. So the word that appears in consciousness is not the consciousness or awareness in which or to which it appears. This discrimination is essential. It seems to be just an intellectual thing. It's much more than that. It is experiential. Because when you understand what I've just said, when you see clearly the difference between the word I and the experience of that which is aware, I am aware, or when you see the difference between the word consciousness and that to which the word appears, which is the real consciousness. This distinction is fundamental. It's not just an intellectual oddity. Oh, strange. Why is it an oddity? For the following reason, is that in most cases, when we use a word, a noun, or a verb, this noun, let's say chair or tree, has a referent, or water. And however, the word water doesn't bring to us water that we can drink. The word doesn't stick to its referent. The word is here, and this referent, the water, can be far away in a well somewhere. And I am thirsty. And I will remain thirsty up until the moment I go to the well, because the word and its referent are separate. But think about the word consciousness. Where does it appear? Can we have the word consciousness without the consciousness that thinks it? It's not possible. You see? So there is an extraordinary difference between ordinary words, such as chair, water, etc., that refer to external objects, phenomena, and other words that I could call, instead of calling them a phenomenal word, we should call them noumenal words, such as I, consciousness, reality. Awareness is the same as consciousness in my book. But look, can we have the word I without being there as a thinker of I? Can we have the world consciousness without being there as the beholder of this world? You see, very different. And that this very important remark paves the way, is the key that opens, that reveals the power of language. The spiritual power of language lies in words such as these, because these words have the power to lead to their referent, to reveal their referent. You see, they are not just pointers that point at the water in the distance. They point at the spirit here and now.
Wow. Yeah, that was really good. Thank you for that answer. And thanks for the question, Jeanette, because it really did reveal amazing content from Francis. Thank you, Francis. We have a hand up from Melina. Melina, would you unmute your mic and ask your question, please? Melina?
Yeah, now.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
There you are. Yep.
Yeah, I did it. Okay. My question is, I know that many people ask the same question. Yeah, but this is really, when I thought about question, which I would like to put to Francis, it was just this. I have read many spiritual books, have listened to a few spiritual teachers, and when I listen to them, I experience openness in my heart, etc., etc. But after some time, I am back in my old world again. And sometimes I feel it as frustration. And my question is it possible to change that? Is it really possible to live without the domination of conditioning?
Yes.
Yes, but.
And yes, no, there is no but. It depends. It depends. It depends. It depends how much you will it. And also it connects to the first question, you know, the role of the guru, of the teacher. In the Indian tradition, because ultimately everything is our guru. An illness we have had, the loss of a loved one, a breakup in a relationship, a problem with finances, a failure in our studies. There are many events in our lives which, in the moment, seem to be very negative, but in hindsight, have put us on the path to truth. And so we see them now with more wisdom in a different light, right? Mm-hmm. So all events, including people we meet, including books we meet, teachers, are teaching events. Life is made of teaching events. And even the Neo-Advaita teachers we were talking about, if we meet such a teacher, if we follow this teaching, it's because that's what we needed at that moment.
Yes.
Now, it is okay to move from teacher to teacher because our allegiance is not to the person. We have to understand that our allegiance is to the truth, which is being taught. And the duty, if you will, of the student of truth is to drink from the purest source he or she can find. In other words, it is for each of us as truth lovers and truth seekers to ask ourselves the question, what is the best source of truth that I have found so far? And stick to it up until a better source shows up. And in the Indian tradition, they make a distinction between Upagurus, which are the ones like the 2x4 behind the neck we have that have hurt us in our past history, and other teachers we have met and we have changed. And then there is one, which is the one that takes us to wisdom. The last one, they call it the Karana Guru. And the Karana Guru is the one, especially because we may have had a glimpse before. Yes. You see, before we may have had this experience of oneness. But then the question is the one you're asking. How do I move from this experience of oneness to being established in inner peace? Yes. And the Karana Guru has to be somehow, although nobody is perfect, you know. Jesus was not perfect. I'm sorry, you know. Ramana Maharshi was not perfect. Krishna was not perfect. People have made them perfect after they were dead, but they were not perfect. So, but although the teacher is not perfect, he still embodies qualities and an authenticity that will communicate itself beyond the words, you know, almost through body language or through observation. I've learned more from my teacher somehow through, I mean, the question part of my experience with him was just the first phase. But then I've learned more from him by looking at him, by listening the tone of his voice, by knowing him more, by seeing how he moves, how he acts in life, how he laughs, etc., and how he behaves in ordinary, casual situations. So that's where the real teaching really takes place. And that is final teaching that takes us along the path. Once we have reached the path, remember, before we were on the path to the path, when we have reached the path, it's up to us to make a deliberate effort, but it's not an effort really, because it's a joyful effort. We want to do it. We want to do it to recondition mind and body that have been conditioned by years of ignorance, and to kind of uproot these old reactions that seem to bring about relapses into ignorance. But something beautiful is once we have had a first glimpse, these relapses into ignorance, they don't last. You know, it's like before that, our mind was like an old frying pan. And instantaneously, with the first glimpse, it has been turned into a Teflon non-sticking frying pan. So that when we have a relapse into ignorance, ignorance doesn't stick to us any longer. But nevertheless, there are relapses, there are matter of habits, and there are techniques, ways to decondition the body and the mind, and to recondition it in a way, to realign it in ways that are more consistent with our true nature. For instance, we usually, for instance, the body is very much part of this conditioning. The body has been conditioned in ignorance, that we feel separate from the universe that surrounds us. And first of all, to a certain extent, it's true that the body is separate, can be identified as, but it's not really true. The body is limited, but it is not separate from the universe. I mean, the elementary particles, the way the body is made out of, the physical body, they are part of the same field of particles that of the world that surrounds us. So we are constantly in symbiosis with the world that surrounds us. Mm-hmm. But do we feel, as we interact with the world, do we feel this absence of separation, or do we feel that we are separate? And the answer is, in most cases, as a result of this conditioning due to ignorance, we feel that we are separate. Yeah. And we feel that we as awareness are limited and localized in and prisoners of this human body. And this is ignorant conditioning. So there is work to do on the body and on the belief system to decondition the body and the mind. Mm-hmm. Some liberated beings, after a glimpse of truth, they don't have the interest or the courage or what it takes to do this sadhana. They have to wait up until the body goes down the drain to enjoy the fruit, fully the fruit of liberation. Others, there are very rare cases when, upon the first glimpse of truth, that's it. They are established in wisdom. But in most cases, we are between these two extremes. Yes. We go on the path of a sadhana, and that's where the traditions come up.
Thank you. Thank you, Francis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melina.
I like the question when I can see the sweet face of the questioners.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
She has a beautiful smile.
Thank you.
Lindsay, I think we have your email, and if this is the same Lindsay, I'm happy to see you have your hand up. Would you please unmute your mic? Oh, your mic is unmuted. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Okay. Hi, Herr Francis. I don't have the written what I wrote to you, Bill, in front of me, but actually it dovetails nicely with Melania's last question and your answer to it. So this is something that I feel is very important to me, and I have been taking exactly what you just said about that feeling versus the recognition or the intellectual knowledge of this one and the same out into kind of out into my experience to try to come back and say, yes, that's true, or yes, I see that. And it's so hard for me because when a bunch of different things are happening, like let's just say all the sensory perceptions are going at one time, including thoughts, which is not a perception, but I mean, including everything. Let's say I'm thinking and the horns are honking and I have an itch on my nose and I'm seeing, everything's going at once. Is somebody like you and others who are established in wisdom, when you say the difference between just understanding that all is one and that all is a movement of reality, is that I feel movement inside of myself when I try to feel that I'm all of this that's happening at once. I feel movement instead of that eternal, just sort of peaceful presence. What does the feeling feel like to you when you know that everything is you as awareness? What does that feel like? I'm having a hard time locating that when I go investigate it, daily. And that's been a question I've been asking for myself for a while now. I can't nail down, and I'm not trying to nail it down, but and sometimes I definitely have that, because you at one time said in one of your Monday, Wednesday, Friday meditations, feel what it feels like to be, universal awareness. And Jenny, a couple of homework assignments ago, was saying, think of the consciousness behind the other person's eyes as being, you, or that, coming from different branches of a tree. If you go down far enough in the trunk, you come from the same place. So I took actually that paper and tried to take that out into the real world, and I just can't seem to feel, as soon as I go to try to feel what everything feels like, it feels like I'm jumping back and forth to movement of all those different things that I'm perceiving.
Yes, because
does that make sense?
You are trying to do something, right?
Yeah.
You are trying to experience what you are experiencing in a different way than the way you are experiencing it. But before that, let me ask you a question. What do you believe to be? What, not believe, but what do you really believe in the authenticity of your own intelligence and of your own heart? When you are asked like that, this question, point blank, as I am doing, what is it that you believe to be? Do you believe to be a woman?
No. At times when I'm relapsing, yes.
No, now.
No.
What do you believe to be, or
No.
what do you feel to be? Do you feel to be a soul?
No, I'm reduced down. I'm what's hearing your words and seeing what's in front of me, whatever is showing up in my scene. That I can feel when I remember that I'm not a woman. I'm not
When you say remember I'm not a woman, do you remember that because people like Francis have said that, or do you remember that because that's your experience?
Well, I don't think I could have come to that conclusion on my own.
That's a problem. So let's analyze that, because that's why I was asking you.
Sorry. Sorry, I apologize.
That's why I was asking you. Now, as I am asking you point blank, in the authenticity of your own counsel, what is it that you feel to be, or that you know to be?
I know to be being. I know to be myself as being. I know that.
Yeah, in other words, you know that you are, right? But you don't know what you are.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right.
Yes.
That's correct.
So what is important in this aspect, in this, my questioning, is to really drive the nail into the coffin of ignorance, which is, in the nail you drive, is that is I don't know what I am. Although it seems to be something negative, it is a beautiful tool towards wisdom.
Totally.
Because that is something which is your own. It is not something you know because Francis has said it. I know that you know it from experience, you see. Mm-hmm. You are this invisible awareness, which is, or whatever we call it, it doesn't matter, presence, I, self, which is hearing these words right now. That's what you are. And that's all you know to be.
Right.
So our problem is not that we don't know enough about what we are. It's quite the opposite. Our problem is that we know too much. And the too much we know is simply BS. So we know I am a woman. Oops, I'm cooked. We know I am a mother, a father. No. Before we are any of those, we are this not knowing presence. I know that I am, I don't know what I am. And the fact that I don't know what I am is beautiful, because if I don't know what I am, I can be anything. You see, it gives me this formlessness that enables me to adopt all forms, just as water, because of its liquid quality, can take the shape of a vase, of a glass. It doesn't have a well-specified form. So as awareness, being formless, being invisible, I can take all the shapes, all the colors. I can be anything. I can be a woman, a man, a husband, a father, a child. I can be all of that. And I am none of that. And all you have to do is to stick to this understanding, to hold on to it,
right,
for dear life.
Right.
The more you learn how to hold on to it, the more it will save you from the turmoil you were talking about.
Right.
I'm not saying that in the beginning we don't fall. After all, as we learned as a young child how to walk, we must have fallen many, many times, right? But now you can dance. So it's the same. We fall, and we go back on our feet. We congratulate ourselves for having gone through this experience and have realized the mistake we have made. We fall again, we realize the mistake we have made. We congratulate ourselves for our intelligence in recognizing the mistake we have made. And we end up dancing in life.
That's beautiful. That helps me so much. Thank you, Francis. That's spot on. Thank you. So it's not the actual feeling as I was trying to describe the feeling of being everything. It's that in the not knowing, you can take the shape or the being of everything that is in your experience.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Jenny, would you read our next question, please? And if anyone has a question for Francis, we have about 15 minutes left, and please formulate your question. Raise your hand.
And I choose which question because we have a short time left, Bill. Was that all right?
Of course.
Okay. This one is from Pivi. Why are we here in this dream world asking questions? What is the meaning of everything?
the question is, why are we in this dream? And the answer is, we are not in the dream. So the question why is moot. We are not in this dream. This dream is in us.
I think this may be a reference, Francis, I don't know, but I think it may be a reference to an idealist perspective.
But the fact is that if we, yes, if it is an idealist perspective, it's obvious that the question, in this case, why are we in this dream, is moot, because from an idealist perspective, this dream is in us. But in the same way, in a realist perspective, why are we in this world? If by we mean awareness, doesn't make sense either, because it is not our experience that awareness is in the world. Quite the opposite. Our experience is that the world appears in awareness. So you can never find awareness in the world. No brain surgeon, upon opening a skull, has shown to the anesthesiologist, see this little spot here? That's the awareness. No. Awareness is not in the world any more than it is in the skull. So now, if we by we mean the body, and by world you mean the physical world, yes, the body is in the world. That's obvious. Now, the question why assumes that all questions have an answer. But perhaps there are questions that don't have an answer. And the question why is perhaps the type of questions that don't have an answer. And at least that don't have a phenomenal answer. That don't have to be more explicit. A phenomenal, final answer. And the reason is, let me explain what I mean by a phenomenal answer. It's an answer, for instance, I said, I felt sick because I drank too much champagne. So it establishes a causal relationship between an effect, being sick, and a cause, drinking too much champagne. But this answer to the question, why was I sick, doesn't stop there, because then we can ask, why did I drink too much champagne? And then we say, oh, because I was thirsty, or because I was celebrating my son's anniversary, or whatever, right? Or because there was champagne also in the fridge at that moment. So and then next question, why was there champagne in the fridge at that moment? Oh, because I went to Costco and I found this bottle of champagne at an interesting price, I bought it. Why did I go to Costco? Or before I needed to buy food. Why did I need to buy food? Because I was hungry and everything. Why was I hungry, etc. So you can see that the question, why, will never get us to a final answer. You know, because that's what, Dad, why this? Because that. Dad, why that? Because that. Dad, why that? And then finally, shut up. There are no, we have to come to grip with the sad fact that there is no final phenomenal answer to any why question. Now there is a noumenal answer which is the same for everything. There is no duality. So, the why question assumes implicitly that there is a duality, the duality being between the effect and the cause. Or being, because there are two why. Why, what is the cause, or why, what is the goal? In which case, there is a duality between the action and the goal of the action. So, in both cases, the question why implicitly assumes that there is duality. So, in non-duality, which is our actual experience, there is no room for whys. You see? If a teacher being asked a question why answers, it's just to take, for the time being, the position of the question and to try from this vantage point of duality to lift the debate to the reality, to the underlying reality, which is non-dual. I mean, it's a little too theoretical, but yes, I'm sorry about this why questions, my answer to the why question. Because ultimately it's the same. Any question is a why question, and the end of the question is in the understanding on the inherent non-duality, in the inherent wholeness of all things, the absence of separation, the unity.
Thank you for the answer and for the explanation.
Bill, Rick has got a lot of questions. I don't know whether we can invite him on to ask them. He's asked several that he's emailed to us, but there's also he's asked more on the board.
Would you like to come on and ask a question? Ask one of your questions that's relevant to where we are?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, a question regarding ignorance. I noticed more experiences seem to oscillate between ignorance and the acknowledgement of that ignorance. And is ignorance any less detrimental if one notices it? I guess is the question. And how does one know if ignorance is sourced from ignorance itself or awareness?
Oh, the source of ignorance is always awareness. It is always a choice made by awareness. Now, when we notice ignorance, ignorance cannot notice ignorance. So it is always the truth, awareness, that notices ignorance. The problem is that when we notice ignorance, although at that moment there is a glimpse of truth, since we can only notice ignorance from the vantage point of truth, meaning at that moment we were standing in our true nature. The next moment, we go back to identifying with a person who has noticed he or she was in ignorance and then gets frustrated, saying, oh, I again fell in ignorance. In other words, at that moment, we have fallen in ignorance again. We have chosen again to be this person who the moment before was in ignorance, forgetting that in between this previous moment when we were in ignorance and this current moment when we have chosen to fall back, to relapse into ignorance, between these two moments, as we noticed ignorance, we were in our freedom. So once you understand what I've just said, you understand that the moment you notice that you are in ignorance, you are in your freedom. It gives you a key. Just stay there for as long as you can. Be not in a hurry to go back to the cave you just came out of. Enjoy the sun for as long as you can. Then inadvertently down the road, you may find yourself in the cave. But then you will notice, oh, it's dark here. There is no sun. Oh, I am in ignorance. Let's go out of the cave. You see? And then don't blame yourself when you are out of the cave for having been in the cave. When you are out of the cave, congratulate yourself for being out of the cave, because then you will stay out of the cave. The moment you blame yourself for having been in the cave, at that instantaneous moment, the genie takes you back into the cave.
Thank you, Francis. Just notice, period. Thank you.
Did you get your vaccine, Rick?
Yep, sure did.
Perfect.
Yeah, that was lots of smiles going on with that one, Francis. Lots of delightful smiles happening. Do we have time for one more question, and then we'll call it a day? Jenny, do we have one more question, and then we'll call it a day?
Okay, this is a question from Shankari. How to recognize awareness as it is said to have no objective qualities?
Well, that's an interesting question and an important one. And we simply have to ask ourselves, am I aware in this moment? Is there awareness? And the answer is likely to be yes. And then the second question to ask is there any doubt whatsoever that I am aware or that there is awareness in this moment? Or is there absolute certainty that there is awareness in this moment? And the answer has to be yes. So notice that the answer to the question, is there awareness, comes with an absolute certainty, 100%, beyond the shadow of any doubt. Let's compare this answer to another question. For instance, I see a tree in front of me. I ask the question, is there a tree out there? Well, I cannot be 100% certain, because this tree can be perhaps a plastic tree. Or in this moment, I may be hallucinating. Or in this moment, I may just be dreaming. So any other form of certainty which is based on perception is less than 100% certain. Why is that important? It is important because it's like we have two channels of knowledge. One which is 100% certain, through which I know that I am aware. Another one which is less than 100% certain and which at times can be 100% deceiving, through which I know objects. For instance, in the case of night dream, 100% deception. So, because of this difference in the level of certainty, these two channels are different. And why is that important? Is that it is important for the following reason. Is that most people, when you ask them, do you know that you are aware from experience? They say yes. And then if you ask them, what kind of experience is that? They say, I know that I'm aware because I perceive objects. In other words, they make the experience of awareness dependent on the presence of objects. And they say, okay, if there are no objects, there is no awareness. So they identify awareness with awareness of objects. That's the mistake. And that's why it's so important to differentiate between the two levels of certainty, the ones through which we know there is awareness, 100% certain, and the ones through which we know perception, sounds, feelings, thoughts, less than 100% certain. Two channels. So I hope that in my answer, I've at least opened for you the possibility of this direct channel to awareness, through which awareness knows itself directly without the agency of objects. Now, it is not the only argument and the only experiential point that proves to you the existence of this direct channel. There are other arguments that are very important in disproving the statement according to which we know that there is awareness because we know objects or perceptions. Because the people would say, yes, we infer awareness from the experience of objects, from the presence of objects. But that's not a proper use of inference. But it's too philosophical for me to elaborate more on this. I do it sometimes, but to be too long and it would sound too intellectual, but it's nevertheless very important. But the most important thing is to be open to the possibility that we know that we are aware through the direct experience of awareness by awareness.
Well, I felt that was a very important question and a brilliant answer. Thank you, Francis. And thank you, Pavi, for that question. And all of you, thank you for being here. Thank you for your great questions sent in by email. And thank you for your joining with us. Francis, thank you for this bonus day as we carry on in the study of the perfume of silence. And we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to really bring the brilliance into this study. There's a really thirsty and a group of truth lovers that join regularly here. We've been gathering for about 3 years, and looking forward to the rest of the perfume of silence. And we really appreciate your joining with us today. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We'll look at Chapter 4 next week, the mother of all problems. And Jenny, do you have any final words before we leave?
Nothing other than a huge thank you to Francis, because those were such beautiful answers. Really lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
And thank you, everyone. And thank you for your questions.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week on Tuesday at 12 Eastern, and we'll be looking at Chapter 4, the first part of Chapter 4. See you then.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So good to see you all.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Blessings all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
That was magical. Thank you.